The invisible approach, the unbreachable fortress. General Vorthok stood at the observation deck of the central command station, his 6 arms folded behind his massive frame as he gazed upon the greatest military achievement in Calroth history. Nexus Prime, the heart of their empire, floated below like a jewel wrapped in steel and energy. Around the planet, a perfect sphere of defensive platforms maintained their eternal vigil. Each platform was a masterpiece of engineering, bristling with quantum cannons capable of reducing asteroids to subatomic particles. The defensive grid had been 500 years in the making. 12,000 platforms arranged in 7 concentric spheres, each one connected to the others through a web of energy conduits that could redirect power instantly to any threatened sector. The spaces between platforms were filled with automated patrol drones, sensor nets, and minefields that could detect and destroy anything larger than a grain of sand. Status report, Commander Zix. Vorthok's deep voice rumbled through the command center. Commander Zix, a younger Calroth with the distinctive blue-scaled skin of the officer class, manipulated his control interface with practiced efficiency. All systems optimal, General. The outer perimeter shows no contacts. Middle perimeter clear. Inner perimeter secure. No vessel has approached within 50,000 kilometers in the past rotation. Vorthok nodded approvingly. The Calroth Empire controlled 17 star systems, but Nexus Prime was their crown jewel. Here, the High Council made the decisions that affected billions of lives. Here, the Empire's greatest treasures were stored and protected. And here, behind walls of energy and steel that had never been breached, the Calroth people felt truly safe. General Zix called out, his voice carrying a note of confusion. I'm detecting some unusual readings from Sector 15 of the outer perimeter. Vorthak's yellow eyes narrowed. In 5 centuries, the word unusual had never been used to describe anything approaching Nexus Prime. Define unusual, Commander. The sensors are picking up gravity distortions, but there's no mass signature to account for them. The distortions appear for several seconds, then vanish completely. It's been happening in a regular pattern for the past few minutes. The impossible detection. Vorthak moved to the central display, his massive frame casting shadows across the control consoles. The holographic representation of space around Nexus Prime showed the familiar patterns of their defensive grid. But in Sector 15, strange ripples of energy appeared and disappeared like waves on an invisible ocean. Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array, Vorthok ordered. Check for equipment malfunctions. Already completed, General. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. Zix's voice held a tremor of uncertainty. The readings are real, but they don't match any known phenomenon. Vorthak's mind raced through the possibilities. Could it be a new weapon? Some kind of experimental technology from one of the rebellious outer colonies? The Calroth had enemies, but none with the capability to threaten Nexus Prime. Their intelligence networks would have detected any significant military development years in advance. Alert all platforms in the outer perimeter, Vorthok commanded. Bring weapons systems to ready status. I want continuous scans of that sector. Across the defensive grid, 1,200 platforms began powering up their primary weapons. The quantum cannons hummed to life, their targeting systems sweeping space for any sign of threat. The automated patrol drones adjusted their flight patterns, converging on Sector 15 like a swarm of mechanical predators. General Zix's voice was barely above a whisper. The distortions are getting stronger. Whatever's causing them, it's getting closer. On the main display, the gravity distortions intensified. Space itself seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. The very fabric of reality appeared to be under stress, as if something enormous was pressing against it from another dimension. All platforms, prepare to fire on my command, Vorthok ordered. His hands moved to the master weapons control, ready to unleash the combined firepower of the galaxy's most powerful defensive system. The revelations pace tore open like fabric being ripped apart. Through the tear, something vast and dark began to emerge. The sensors screamed warnings as gravitational readings spiked beyond their maximum ranges. Energy patterns unlike anything in their databases flooded the detection systems. The UES Prometheus materialized in the heart of Sector 15, its hull absorbing light like a hole in space itself. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Calroth battleship, but its design was unlike anything in their military databases. Instead of the angular, practical lines of Calroth engineering, the human vessel flowed like liquid metal, its curves and contours seemingly alive with inner light. By the ancient ones, Zix breathed. What is that thing? Vorthok stared at the impossible sight. The ship had materialized inside their defensive perimeter, past sensors that could detect a butterfly at 1,000 kilometers. It shouldn't exist, shouldn't be possible, and yet there it was, hanging in space like a dark star. Unknown vessel, Vorthak's voice boomed across all communication frequencies. You have violated the sovereign space of the Calroth Empire. Identify yourself immediately or face destruction. The response came not as words, but as a gentle, almost amused voice that spoke in perfect Calroth. General Vorthok, this is Admiral Theron Kess of the United Earthship Prometheus. We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but your defensive grid is quite impressive. We needed to make sure we had your full attention. First contact, Vorthak. Blood ran cold. The voice was calm, confident, and spoke their language with casual fluency. Worse, it knew his name. How do you know who I am? How did you penetrate our defenses? We know many things about your people, General. We've been watching, learning, preparing. As for your defenses, they're very good against conventional threats. Unfortunately for you, we're not conventional. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Theron Kess stood before the main viewport, watching the Calroth defensive platforms with professional interest. The Admiral was a tall, lean human with silver hair and eyes that held the wisdom of countless battles. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency at stations that seemed to blend technology with art. Captain Vasquez, Kess, addressed his tactical officer, a woman with dark hair and sharp features. What's the status of their weapon systems? All platforms are powered up and targeting us, Admiral. Quantum cannons, particle beams, and what appears to be some kind of gravitational pulse weapon. Quite impressive for their technology level. Kess nodded approvingly. The Calroth are excellent engineers. It's unfortunate they've used their skills primarily for warfare. Back on the command station, Vorthok struggled to maintain his composure. You claim to be human. Our intelligence reports indicate humans are a primitive species from the galactic rim. They lack faster-than-light travel. Your intelligence is somewhat outdated, Kess replied. We've made significant progress in recent years, but we're not here to discuss our technological development. We're here to talk about your future. The demonstration Vorth had heard enough. Whether these were humans or some other species using human names, they had violated the most secure space in the Empire. They had somehow bypassed defenses that had taken centuries to build. They had to be destroyed before they could relay information. about Nexus Prime's defenses to their allies. All platforms target the intruding vessel. Fire when ready. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 1,200 quantum cannons fired simultaneously, their beams converging on the human ship. In a display of destructive power that could have shattered a moon, the energy output was so intense that it created a temporary star in the void of space. When the light faded, the Prometheus hung in space exactly where it had been before, its hull unmarked and undamaged. The ship hadn't even bothered to move. Impressive. Kess's voice came over the communication system. Your weapons have excellent coherence and targeting systems. We're quite impressed with the engineering. Vorthok stared at the undamaged ship in disbelief. Impossible. Nothing can survive that much concentrated energy. General, may I explain something about human defensive technology? Kess's voice remained calm and educational. Your weapons operate on the principle of overwhelming force. You generate massive amounts of energy and direct it at your target. It's a sound strategy that has served your people well. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez monitored the ship's defensive systems with professional satisfaction. Admiral, their weapons barely registered on our shields. The energy absorption systems are actually gaining power from their attacks. Excellent. Begin the demonstration, Captain. Let's show them what human technology can really do. The impossible defense the Prometheus began to change. Patterns of light flowed across its hull like living circuits. Energy field generators came online, creating a visible aurora around the ship that pulsed in rhythm with some unheard heartbeat. The very space around the vessel began to distort, bending light and matter in ways that hurt to look at directly. General Zix called out, his voice filled with panic. The energy readings from that ship are off all our scales. It's like they're channeling the power of a star. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez monitored the ship's defensive systems with professional satisfaction. Admiral, their weapons barely registered on our shields. The energy absorption systems are actually gaining power from their attacks. Excellent. Begin the demonstration, Captain. Let's show them what human technology can really do. The impossible defense the Prometheus began to change. Patterns of light flowed across its hull like living circuits. Energy field generators came online, creating a visible aurora around the ship that pulsed in rhythm with some unheard heartbeat. The very space around the vessel began to distort, bending light and matter in ways that hurt to look at directly. General Zix called out, his voice filled with panic. The energy readings from that ship are off all our scales. It's like they're channeling the power of a star. Vorthok watched in fascination and growing horror as the human ship demonstrated capabilities that exceeded his understanding of physics. Energy barriers that could turn aside their most powerful weapons. Gravitational fields that could bend space itself. Technology that seemed to merge science with something approaching magic. How, Vorthok whispered, human civilization is older than you realize, General Kess explained. We've had time to develop technologies that work with the fundamental forces of the universe rather than against them. Your weapons try to destroy through brute force. Our defenses convert that force into useful energy. The demonstration continued. The Prometheus extended what appeared to be tendrils of controlled space-time, reaching out to gently touch the nearest defensive platform. The massive structure, weighing millions of tons, began to move slowly through space under the influence of forces that the Kalroth couldn't even detect, let alone understand. We're not moving your platform to threaten you, Kess said gently. We're showing you that we could dismantle your entire defensive grid without harming a single member of your crew. But we haven't come here to fight you. The trooper felt his world shifting beneath his feet. Everything he had believed about military superiority, about the invincibility of Calroth technology, was crumbling before his eyes. If you're not here to fight, then what do you want? We want to save your people, General. There's something coming that will destroy everything you've built here. Something that makes our little demonstration look like a child's toy. The words hung in the silence of space like a death sentence. Vorthok looked at his defensive grid, at the platforms that had been the pride of his civilization, and realized they were no more capable of protecting his people than paper shields. What kind of threat could be worse than your ship? Asked. The kind that destroyed 3 civilizations before yours, General. The kind that's heading for Nexus Prime right now. The kind that only humanity has the technology to stop. As if to emphasize the point, the Prometheus's sensors swept across the Calroth fleet with casual ease, cataloging every weapon, every defensive system, every tactical capability in seconds. The message was clear. If humanity wanted to destroy them, they could do so at any time they chose. Why would you help us? Vorthok asked, his voice barely audible. Because that's what humans do, General. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even when those people have spent centuries preparing to fight us. The first part of the encounter was over. The Calroth Empire had met humanity and discovered that all their preparations, all their weapons, all their pride meant nothing against a force they had never imagined could exist. But the real test was yet to come. Asterisk, the reckoning, the Council of War Emergency, klaxons, wailed throughout the Calroth fleet as General Vorthok convened the most critical military council in his species' history. The conference room aboard the central command station filled with the Empire's greatest military minds, their scaled faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. The holographic display at the center of the table showed the human ship, still hanging motionless in space like a dark omen. Fleet Admiral Crox, Vorthok addressed the elderly commander of the Calroth Navy. What are our options? Crox's weathered features showed the strain of command. General, we have assembled the most powerful fleet in our history. 400 heavy cruisers, 2,000 destroyers, and the entire planetary defense grid. Every weapon in our arsenal is trained on that single vessel. And you believe this will be sufficient? Crox hesitated. General, their shields absorbed. The combined fire of 1,200 quantum cannons without effect, but perhaps concentrated fire from our entire fleet, will accomplish nothing, interrupted Admiral Kess's voice from the communication system. Gentlemen, we can hear your conference. Your communication encryption is quite good, but not beyond our capabilities. The Calroth officers exchanged glances of shock and outrage. Their most secure communications had been breached as easily as their defenses. However, Kess continued, I appreciate your strategic thinking. Please, continue with your attack plans. We're curious to see what your full military might can accomplish. The gathering storm Vorthok's pride burned like acid in his chest. The human was taunting them, daring them to attack with the casual confidence of someone who knew the outcome was already decided. But he had no choice. The security of the Empire, the safety of billions of Calroth lives, demanded that he try everything in his power to neutralize this threat. All ships, assume attack formation. Omega-7, Vorthok commanded. Coordinate your fire with the planetary defense grid. I want every weapon to fire simultaneously. Across the space around Nexus Prime, the greatest military force in Calroth history moved into position. The heavy cruisers formed a sphere around the human ship, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. The destroyers filled the gaps between them, creating an unbroken wall of firepower. The defensive platforms adjusted their targeting systems, preparing to add their considerable might to the assault. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez monitored the enemy formation with professional interest. Admiral, they're positioning 437 capital ships in a spherical formation. Estimated combined firepower is approximately 47 times what we faced in the initial engagement. Admiral Kess nodded approvingly. Excellent. Tactical thinking. They're trying to overwhelm our defenses with sheer volume of fire. A sound strategy against most opponents. Orders, sir. Let them fire, Captain. It's important they understand exactly what they're dealing with. The ultimate tester attack began at precisely 1400 hours. Calroth Standard Time. Every weapon in the fleet fired simultaneously, creating a sphere of pure energy that encompassed the human ship. Quantum cannons, particle beams, gravitational pulses, and exotic matter warheads converged on the Prometheus in a display of destruction that dwarfed anything previously seen in galactic warfare. The energy release was so intense that it created a miniature sun in the void of space. The light was visible from the surface of Nexus Prime, where billions of Calroth citizens watched their military's greatest effort to protect them from an impossible threat. For 30 seconds, the bombardment continued. When it finally ended, the sensors of every ship in the fleet strained to penetrate the dissipating energy clouds, searching for some sign that their enemy had been destroyed. The Prometheus emerged from the inferno completely unchanged. Its hull showed no damage, no scorch marks, no sign that it had just survived an attack that could have destroyed a small planet. The ship hung in space with the same casual indifference it had shown from the beginning. Magnificent, Kess's voice came over the communication system. Your coordination was flawless. Your weapons integration was superb. You should be proud of what you've accomplished here. The demonstration of Power General Vorthok stared at the undamaged human ship and felt something break inside him. The greatest military force in Calroth history had failed completely. Their enemy hadn't even bothered to move out of the way. Now, Kess continued, please allow us to demonstrate what human defensive technology can really do when properly motivated. The Prometheus began to change. What had appeared to be a single ship suddenly revealed itself to be something far more complex. Sections of the hull folded away like flower petals, revealing internal structures that defied understanding. Energy patterns flowed across its surface in configurations that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Admiral, Captain Vasquez reported, the ship's defensive systems are coming online. Shall I demonstrate our point defense capabilities? Please. Do, Captain. But remember, we're not here to kill anyone. Disable their weapons, don't destroy their ships. What happened next would be remembered in Calroth history as the day of impossible things. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from the Prometheus, each one striking a different enemy vessel with surgical precision. The beams didn't destroy the ships, but they did something far more frightening. They shut down every weapon system with pinpoint accuracy. 437 warships were rendered helpless in less than 60 seconds. Their engines continued to function, their life support systems remained operational, but every offensive capability had been neutralized by technology that operated beyond Calroth understanding. The revelation, your fleet is unharmed, Kess announced. Your crews are safe, but you are now defenseless. We could have destroyed every ship in your fleet, but we chose not to. Do you understand why? Vorthok's voice was barely a whisper. Because you're not here to conquer us, correct? We're here to save you from something that will make our capabilities look primitive by comparison. The main display in the Calroth Command Center shifted to show a three-dimensional map of local space. At the edge of the display, a red marker pulsed ominously. What you're seeing, Kess explained, is a void harvester. It's a self-replicating weapon system created by a species that died out millions of years ago. It consumes entire star systems, converting matter into energy and using that energy to create more of itself. The display zoomed in on the red marker, revealing a structure that resembled a mechanical spider the size of a moon. Around it, space itself seemed to be dying, stars flickering out like candles in a wind. 3 civilizations have already fallen. To this particular harvester, Kess continued, the Zenth Federation, the Krell Empire, and the Syndicate of Worlds. Each one had technology more advanced than yours. Each one fought with courage and determination. All of them failed. The impossible choice, Verthak stared at the display in horror. The thing approaching their space was clearly beyond anything the Calroth could hope to fight. Their most powerful weapons had failed completely against a single human ship. What hope did they have against a weapon that had destroyed 3 advanced civilizations? How long do we have? He asked. Approximately 72 hours before it reaches the outer edge of your territory. Once it begins consuming your star systems, it will be impossible to stop, and you can destroy this thing. We can try. Human technology is specifically designed to counter void harvester weapons. We've been preparing for this encounter for decades. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just stumbled upon the Calroth by accident. They had been tracking the harvester, preparing for this moment, ready to intervene when the time came. Why help us? Warthok asked. Your technology is clearly superior to ours. You could let this thing destroy us and claim our territory for yourselves. Admiral Kess was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of profound conviction. Because that's not who we are, General. Humanity learned long ago that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about making sure that intelligence, curiosity, and the drive to explore survive in the universe. Your people have those qualities. They deserve to continue existing. The alliance, the treaty, was signed in the shadow of approaching doom. The Calroth Empire, proud and militaristic, formally requested assistance from the United Earth Federation. It was a moment that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. General Kess said as the formal documents were transmitted, "We'll need complete access to your defensive grid. Our ships will be arriving shortly to coordinate the defense." Ships? Vorthok asked. How many ships? Enough, Kess replied. The Prometheus is just the advanced scout. The main fleet is ... considerable. As if summoned by his words, space around Nexus Prime began to distort. Not in one location, but in dozens of places simultaneously. The tears in reality spread like wounds across the void, and through them came the United Earth Federation's home defense fleet. 50 ships materialized in perfect formation, each one unique in design but clearly part of a coordinated force. Some were sleek and fast, others massive and imposing. All of them carried the distinctive flowing lines and living light patterns of human engineering. By the Ancient Ones, Zix whispered, they could have destroyed us at any time. But they didn't, Vorthok replied, and for the first time in hours, he felt something resembling hope. They came to save us instead. The final preparation, the next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. Human engineers worked alongside Calroth technicians to integrate the defensive systems. The differences in technology were staggering, but the humans adapted their equipment with the casual ease of people who had solved similar problems many times before. Admiral Captain Vasquez reported, "The defense grid integration is complete. All Calroth platforms are now networked into our command system." Excellent. Status on the Harvester. 18 hours until it reaches the outer system. It's already begun consuming the asteroid belt. Kess nodded grimly. The real test was about to begin. The Calroth had learned that their greatest enemies could become their greatest allies. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's hidden guardians. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient weapon approached that would test whether cooperation could triumph over annihilation. The story of the Calroth Empire's first contact with humanity was over. The story of their survival was about to begin as the combined human Calroth fleet prepared for the battle. That would determine the fate of two civilizations. One thing had become clear: the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. But it was also filled with unexpected allies, and sometimes the greatest victories came not from conquest, but from the courage to trust in the impossible. The Void Harvester was coming, but it would find more than just another victim waiting. For it would find humanity, and humanity never fought alone. Asterisk.